All right. Well, hello, everyone. This is my first time using StreamYard, and Rose is helping me, so hopefully everything is working as it should. I'm trusting her to be my board operator, to use a very old radio term. Welcome to the Secrets of Saturn channel. I haven't done this in over a year, and I thought, I think I'll start doing some stuff again. And I was just thinking how long it's been, because that's the first time I've heard my own music in I don't know how long. One of my favorite songs I've ever written and recorded. So anyway, I hope everyone's doing well. Now, I know everybody knows me as one of those crazy conspiracy theorist kind of guys. That's not really what I'm doing tonight. I'm speaking with somebody who I just met. Seems like a very lovely person, but she's friends with Rose. And I think this is going to be a cool conversation because it's good to get out of your own sphere, so to speak. So I'm going to be speaking to this lovely, lovely lady named Mel Pandora.
Hello.
And hello. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I've been hearing a lot about this thing called the panelverse, and it's kind of a new thing to me. But honestly, when I first started hearing about it, it reminded me of like the old school 1950s, 1960s party lines where people would have telephone lines that were integrated together and you could pick up and have this group conversation. Kind of reminds me of that. But anyway, I know very little about you, and I kind of wanted it that way to make this more interesting, to put myself on the spot, because I actually enjoy doing live radio / live streaming because it makes it more exciting than what I'm usually used to, which is pre-recording and editing and making everything super tight and perfect. This is different. This is just more casual. It's just what happens. And if you screw it up, oh, well, whoopsie. So anyway, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what we're doing here?
Okay, so my name is Mel Pandora. Thank you, Jason. And obviously, thank you to our lovely Rose. I've set up a channel on YouTube. It was on my first year anniversary on Halloween. And I've kind of created a space where people come together. And it's called Panelverse, guys. And what I do is I'll pick a topic. Normally, we will read a little bit of background information. Then I'll open up the panel and we discuss it from people all across the world. I do have an audience from India, from Australia, from obviously America, Europe, Thailand. We've got people from Pakistan, all over the place. So we all kind of come together and we talk about everyday subjects. And yes, the Panelverse, whereas most of the time is fun, you never really quite can predict what direction it might go to. So sometimes it can get heated, let's say. Because obviously when you're having opinions about a subject, and like I said, I do pick real life subjects, when you've got people from all over the world, you are going to have contradicting opinions.
I would assume so.
But
the topics vary too, right? It's not like you're rehashing the same thing night after night. It's a variety of things, right?
Right. We can go from anything from men's mental health to something really, really silly like, is Bigfoot real? Just so, it just kind of depends. Sometimes the subjects are very serious, and that's obviously when we have heated emotions. But the channel is about bringing people together from across the world to learn from each other's cultures. Really, that's the intention. The intention of the channel is unity, because on especially the panelverse sphere, there's a lot of division. So I'm trying to do the opposite. I'm trying to bring people together.
Okay, now you just said something very interesting that I actually wasn't all that aware of. I do see a lot of division in the quote unquote conspiracy communities, but that's a fractured thing on top of that. There's all different little groupings of people who are into different topics within what's considered conspiracy. I'm an old school conspiracy guy. I'm from the time of like the 90s and early 2000s where Bill Cooper and Alex Jones, like a lot of the people who were around back then. And that a lot of that's been completely eclipsed now by so many other people. And of course, that's because of the proliferation of the internet. So everything I'm used to really blew up post 9/11 just because of the event. And a lot of people who might not have been all that conspiratorial minded started making themselves some tinfoil hats, and it just kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger from there. But anyway, to get back to what you were saying about the panelverse, why is it divisive? Is it literally just a difference of opinions, or is there something in particular that sets people off? Like, this is fascinating to me. And before we get into the rest of it, one of my favorite subjects is something called social engineering. A lot of people are familiar with that term from like people trying to get into security buildings and things like that. But I'm into, I actually pulled up the literal definition in case you weren't familiar with this at all. Social engineering, the exact textbook definition is the use of centralized planning in an attempt to manage social change and regulate the future development and behavior of a society. And one of my favorite people who really did a lot of this was a guy named Edward Bernays, who was around in the early 20th century all the way up until I think he died in, was it 95, I think, somewhere thereabouts. So he is considered the father of public relations / kind of into advertising and even propaganda. The guy was so massively influential, and it's just a topic I find incredibly fascinating because this guy was a devious little dude and found all these ways to whatever the job was. That's my cat, by the way. You're going to see his tail going. My cat Pluto.
I've got my dog scratching on my side, wanting treats, and I'm like, you got to wait.
No, Pluto has gotten to a point where if I sit at my studio desk, he's right here. Usually just lays in front of me, but he's wandering around.
I can see
so anyway, in case you see that. But anyway, Edward Bernays did a lot of stuff. Like a lot of reason people, even just like a good example is like why you eat bacon and eggs. It's because a bacon company had hired him to sell more product, and he came up with a clever way of marketing it to get people to buy it. Things like that. But also it got used for propaganda, even to the point that the bad guys in WW2 were reading his books to implement the propaganda that he had, his way of doing propaganda to manipulate people en masse. That's the thing. It's about mass. It's not just screwing with one person, it's screwing with as many people as you can to get them on board with whatever it is you're trying to push. So with all that being said, what do you think about, like, let's see, what's the right way to word this? I see this panelverse thing almost being a social engineering concept, if you will, because you could throw a topic out there. You have all these people coming together and talking about it. And the moderator, I would think, could throw ideas out there and see how people react to it.
Well, and I'm not speaking, or like obviously for everybody, a lot of the panelverse community will intentionally be argumentative for clicks and views, because everybody knows the drama sells. So I wanted to do something of the opposite nature, rather than have a load of people come on arguing and it's crazy, everyone's shouting over each other. What we tend to do is the chat is equally as important as the panel, and we bounce ideas off each other. So it's slightly different to what you were explaining. I'm not trying to influence any particular opinion, because I give a lot of time out to my guests that are on panel, because for me, it's not about what necessarily I might think, but what my guests may think. So it's more about inclusion and acceptance for me. And like I said, unity. That's really important for me, is the unity part, that it's okay to disagree on a subject and come back the next day and it's done and dusted. None of this drama, back and forth, tit for tat, all that stuff,
So would you say that there's not a lot of infighting, and is it a lot of the same people coming back time and time again, or yeah, it is a lot of the same people?
Yeah.
And are we talking like dozens of people, hundreds of people, like switching out? Like what kind of numbers are we talking about?
I mean, like I said, I'm only a year old, so normally I will get, let's say, approx 1,000 views alive.
Okay, well, that's not bad. I don't even know what kind of numbers I'm going to get. I haven't done this in over a year, so we'll see. I do plan on doing more things. In fact, I'll just let everybody know who's here, who knows who I am. I'm actually going to do a little bit tomorrow with Jaron Campanella, because this whole thing with the final experiment, even though I really don't have a dog in this fight, and I don't consider myself part of any of these groups, I'm very fascinated by what's going on there, and I want to give Jaron a fair shake about what's going on with that. So anyway, yeah, we're going to do that tomorrow night at 9 my time, which is Central, so 9 CST tomorrow night. I'll be talking to Jaron. But anyway, let's get back to this. What would you say? Well, you know what? You've been doing this for a year, so I'm assuming.
Well, no, I was doing it before. I was a co-host on another channel, and it was actually, you said conspiracy. He was very much into his conspiracy theories. So, cool. Yeah. So I spent a year on his channel with the conspiracy theories every single week, and we had so much fun. I'm not going to lie, it was a constant laugh a minute all the time, even with the subject sometimes being a bit. Sometimes they used to blow my mind, but yes, but we would definitely always have laugh about it. And he decided to take some time off, like yourself. You've taken some time off YouTube, as is he. And so I decided to sort of really start focusing on my own channel. Is it okay if I say thank you to one of my people for a super chat?
Oh, yeah, go right ahead.
I'd like to say thank you to Sinner for your $10 super chat. Thank you, darling. Thank you for the compliment. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm very curious to see where all this came from and where it's going. Like, what started this concept of a panelverse? Because usually what people are into, they're content creators, so they usually have a subject or maybe an umbrella of subjects. Because even just saying conspiracy, that can mean a hell of a lot of different things. Right. Even with me, it can mean a hell of a lot of different things. Usually, now my main show I'm on, which is a show called Crow 777 Radio, is actually really big. And I have a partner, the guy who's named after is Crow 777. So it's an agreement between us on what we're going to do. And there's some things he just doesn't want to do. And I like some of the sillier wooer kind of stuff, because I'm like an old school Art Bell fan, if you know who he is from way back in the day. Did a lot of the sillier topics, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I believe in them or anything. They're entertaining and they're interesting, and sometimes there's a grain of truth into some things that you might want to explore further. Like you said, like Bigfoot. I never got into Bigfoot, but a lot of people are really, really into it, and I think that's interesting. UFOs. I've actually had UFO sightings, so I find that interesting. So yeah, a lot of this stuff is just all over the place. So I think a lot of your people are showing up. So for anybody who doesn't know who I am, you're probably not going to know who I am, because I'm pretty well known in a very niche circle. I'm from a show called Crow 777 Radio, and we actually have a very large audience. But outside of that, I'm just some guy with long hair who plays guitar. So like nobody knows who the hell I am, which is nice in a way, because I have to prove myself to other people. They might think I'm stupid or boring or whatever, but I've studied a lot of the stuff that we get into for a long time now, several decades, in fact. I've written hundreds of hours of radio at this point. I've got hundreds of hours behind the mic, and I've got a lot of writing behind me. I'm actually a director. I did a documentary on Crow's work, and that's won 10 awards from film festivals. So we've been really busy, and I'm very proud of the work we've done. So that's a quickie on who I am. I saw somebody say I'm too loud. If I'm too loud, let me know. I'll pull down my master fader here. I don't hear myself, so I don't know if I'm too loud or not. But anyway, getting back to the Panelverse, how did these things start? Like, do you know what the origin of it is and what the reasoning behind it is?
The reasoning behind it, I think it kind of depends on the content creator. I mean, personally, I've never been the type to talk at my audience. I've always wanted participation. So for me, it's key that even when people aren't on my panel, I really involve the chat. So how it all started, it started before I came onto YouTube. You know, I've only been on YouTube for 2 years. I can't tell you how it started, but it's definitely, I wanted to provide a different type of panelverse, and whereas a lot of it is argumentative, I wanted to do a more peaceful approach to it because that reflects my nature. And like I said, sometimes it does get wild depending on the subject. Sometimes some subjects are extremely sensitive. Some subjects are incredibly political. I try not to go near politics and religion as a whole, but sometimes it kind of falls into that. So obviously when you have political and religious aspect, it gets heated. But how it all started, I don't know. I guess is somebody on YouTube, however many years ago, decided to open up the panels, and that's how it kind of all started. But it's because that's the environment I came from the previous creator that I was co-hosting for.
Awesome. Now you definitely got my attention with the whole hot button topics. Who's deciding what the topics are? Is that you?
I do.
You do?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm very lucky girl. I have an incredibly large team behind me who are very supportive, who give me ideas, that give me inspiration, or sometimes something may affect my life that gives me inspiration, or something silly. I may watch a movie and it may evoke certain emotions in me, and it will give me an inspiration to approach a certain topic.
So what would you say are some of the most interesting topics that you've come up with so far that got the most engagement, most positive reactions, most negative reactions? Like what is your overall take on it now that you've been doing it for a while?
Hello, my chat darlings. I can't say hello to you because I'm here. So, but hello alls. Obviously, topics, the most volatile of topics, I'm going to call them volatile, have been subjects like men's mental health, termination, abortion rights. These things have been quite volatile. But then I have had some incredible panels where one of my proudest panels was where I had a panel of DV victims, female DV victims, and they were honest and open to share their stories. And it was a real touching live, because the aim was, if we can help anyone, even one person, with something that they're going through, then that makes that live worth it. And I've had so many people reach out to me saying, Mel, thank you. I've been suffering with depression. You get me out of bed in the mornings. So, when you have, obviously, don't get me wrong. When you're a creator, and you'll know this because you've probably been a creator for longer than me, it's a double-edged sword. You get the negative as well as the positive. Luckily, the positive in my channel what far outweighs all the negative, and trust me, there's a lot of negative. Trolls, etc., and all that kind of stuff. But when I look, go ahead.
No, I'm just laughing. Trolls, like, it's like you just can't get away from them no matter what the topic is.
It doesn't matter what you do, who you are.
No.
If
someone's got to stick up their ass or just wants to be a jerk.
Right, and it is what it is. You kind of start accepting that is part of being a creator. You get the hate and the trolls and all that stuff. And actually, I was doing a debate yesterday where I was looking at statistics for the debate. And did you know that 95% of content creators face harassment, cyberbullying, and hate?
Oh, it's as low as 95. I thought 999 because
Right.
literally this is what I've always found interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because it's like if you do this, all of a sudden you're always going to have this portion of people who think that they can sit behind their keyboards and just say whatever they want without any consideration to anyone. But I got to get my opinion heard. It's like, then make your own channel. That's what this is for. Like, YouTube doesn't cost anything for the most part. I mean, yeah, you need a little bit of gear to make it happen, like a microphone minimally with your computer, but it's like, it's free. If you've got an opinion to get out there, don't harass the living shit out of someone else. Just do it yourself. Just start your own channel. But anyway.
Queenie asked me, Mel, did many follow you over from Stoned? Yeah, some did, but as the community's grown, then we, you know, obviously it's grown and we have a lot more people from all over, from all walks of life. One of the nice things about my channel is that I have many content creators come to it and they call it like their timeout peaceful zone. So where I may have a panel full of creators that have their own channels, a lot of them bigger than mine. You know, so it's like an accumulation where people can come over, feel safe. Other content creators, you know, if they want to time out from their communities, they come into mine, and it just works well. You know, it works well. It's a safe space, and it's almost like I'm building my own sector of YouTube.
I like that. Now, with the risk of saying anything inflammatory. Do you find people in general to be leaning more towards one way or the other of the political spectrum? Because coming from a crazy conspiratorial point of view, I have noticed that as the years have gone by, and most especially the last 2 decades, the controllers in this world, the people who like to push the buttons and keep everyone divided and fighting because it's easier to control people, they've really used political nonsense to get people at each other's throats a lot of times. I mean, some of the crazy, horrible things that people will say to each other when they find out you're of the opposite political persuasion than what they are. I mean, they act batshit crazy sometimes. But do you see a mix, or do you find it leaning one way or the other?
Oh no, it definitely mixed, because like I said, I try not to go into politics, and I've got, I mean, every creator will say this, but I've got the most incredible mods where if there is a political standoff, which obviously on your election day, there was high tensions, even within my chat, even though I don't do politics. You know, the moderators are really good at kind of calming it down. And you know, I always say, guys, it's okay to disagree, just keep it respectful. So yes. Mine is very, very mixed, because obviously I have a very large audience from different parts of the world as well. It generally doesn't tend to get too political.
Good. That's actually good. I for the most part, consider myself apolitical. I'm registered as a libertarian because I'm really big on less government is good government, less the better. But just the division that they've created, and it's spilled over massively and intentionally into all the mainstream everything. I mean, you see it with all of the left-wing politics that has infiltrated all the media. Like, there's hardly any good movies or TV shows. Like, everything these days sucks because it's just absolutely permeated with this garbage, because they've hired activists. They're not hiring writers and talented people to make things anymore. They're hiring activists, and they're all from one side of the political spectrum. I'm friends with a guy who's an actor on a really big show, and he's very conservative, in fact. And he told me, he's like, yeah, the couple people that are conservative, you shut your mouth because everyone else is a left-wing lunatic. His words. So one of
the reasons why I don't touch politics in general is also because in the UK it's very censored. So if you say the wrong thing, you will have your channel shut down. It's that simple. They'll remove you just like that. So to avoid
YouTube will, or the government steps in.
Well, don't forget, because I'm in Britain, we've got a different set of TOS not TOS, but there's more censoring on the UK side than there is on the American side. And I think sometimes people forget that. So I have to that's why I'm like, no, let's not do politics at all, because then that avoids the British politics coming into it.
Right. Right. And I actually don't know that much about British politics, to be honest with you. I'm very familiar with American
It's no
politics.
better than American politics, trust me. It's the same.
Well, I would think that the same tricks that they use on America, they use with a lot of Western nations, because even though the cultures, obviously there's cultural differences, I think maybe once you start getting way further east and you start talking about like Asians, like mindsets start to change. But I think generally speaking, Westerners, the same kind of social engineering crap that would work on Americans probably would work on Brits. I might be wrong about that. I don't have a statistic for
Like I
that,
said,
but I'm
I
just
won't talk
speculating.
about it. I won't talk about it, obviously, to protect your channel too.
Right.
But there is a real hot censorship on certain subjects
Yeah. Well,
on
yeah.
my side.
Several different subjects. One of the reasons I stopped doing this, and I'm not even going to get into those topics, is because I was getting tired of having videos ripped down all the time. It's like I'm putting all this effort in, and I went to Rockfin, which is a different network that's YouTube-ish, but they don't censor. But it's like you go there, and I love the platform. The platform's great, but your audience is very tiny compared to YouTube. So when I started doing this in whatever it was, 2014, 2015, the channel grew really, really quick. And then, I forget what year it was, Crow's channel actually got shut down for a couple of weeks because we were touching so many hot button topics at the time. And my memory's failing me, 2017 maybe. But anyway, they took him down for a couple minutes, and then a couple weeks, and then they ended up giving him his channel back for whatever reason. So you just got to be careful. If you're going to be on YouTube, you got to really watch what you're saying, because it doesn't even matter the country. YouTube leans very heavily towards the left side of the political spectrum. Most tech does, in fact. It's something I've actually had discussions on with a lot of people as far as things like artificial intelligence and all that. Like it's people from that side of the political spectrum that are programming a lot of that stuff. So you're seeing that ideology cropping up when you're using those platforms. The only one that's not too bad is the one that's on X, because Elon Musk tries to be, or says he tries to be, more moderate. But anyway, that's
Jason, may I answer a couple of the questions of some of your viewers? One of them said, is religion a sensitive topic? No, religion is not a sensitive topic. I tend to avoid the subject of religion because it gets very heated, and I can respectfully say to people, whatever religion you are, I respect that. I'm non-religious, so it does come up, it does pop up, but it comes with heat, so I try and avoid that. And then somebody else said, what aspect of British politics is censored? The truth. That's all I'm saying.
there you go.
There you go. So but at the same time, as well as like quite hard subjects, we do approach fun topics too. We have a little sector called Mel's Hub, and what that is we'll stop talking about all the serious stuff, and we'll just mess around with adult topics and have a real good laugh about it. So what I tend to do is allocate, because sometimes the subject can go on for hours and hours and hours, because lots of people have different things to say about it. But other times it kind of stops. It has a duration time, so it may stop after 2-3 hours, and then we'll move into Mel's Hub and just have some fun. Some good old fashioned adult fun. All my lives are over 18, so I make sure that people are aware that it's over 18 content.
No, that's good. And it's nice. I'm actually asking questions to lead up to something. I'm glad to know that you do have a mix of people, and other than some banter that I'm sure goes on, that you're able to do some hot button topics even, and everybody can still get along and play nice. I have trouble with seeing that in certain aspects of the conspiracy realm. And you'd think that people who want to claim some stuff that the average person who is like television watching news believer kind of people would think is batshit crazy. You'd think we'd all get along a little better. And I try to. I mean, I don't care what other people believe. I try very hard to be open-minded about everything and not to be married to any concept. That's just my philosophy in life, not just conspiracy stuff. Don't be married to any concept because you might be wrong. It's new information could come up tomorrow that you didn't know the day before, and it might change your point of view. And I'm always telling people that it's like, you just don't know. And that can work in any direction. So that's the way I look at things.
No, but we do hear conspiracy theories on my channel too. Like I said, we have a broad, really broad, nothing's off the table really, apart from, like I said, the two subjects that I try to avoid, and obviously any topic that may border on TOS, but generally we do hit on conspiracy theories, and I have very strong opinions about mainstream media in Hollywood. I have everybody knows, my community knows how I feel about them, but I'm always open to people who may have a contradictory opinion to mine, or even the panels in general.
Well, if you ever want to do a specific conspiracy topic that I'm very well versed in, I'd be happy to come to your channel.
Oh, that would be great.
Because I've got like 25 years worth of experience at this point, just studying things and writing, and I've been doing this a long time. And as a matter of fact, this is what I do for a living, is being a talk show host on Crow 777 Radio. That's how I pay my bills. I actually left a good job. I was a manager for Guitar Center Corporation, and the show grew big enough that it's like, hey, I can do this full time. And then we did the film, and it just, things kept going from there. And to this day, it's still going and really strong. And I'm very, very grateful for that. It's nice not having to go to kill yourself for somebody else or some corporation, and then also have an interest in doing this kind of stuff, and then have to just eat up more of your own, the small amount of spare time that you have. But anyway, is this what you do for a living too? Is this your thing?
No. I'm actually a hospitality manager for a soccer team in London. But that's on a part-time basis, and I do this for fun, really. I mean, for me, it's social interactions, because life's generally getting very expensive, especially where I am. I'm in London. It's extremely expensive to make ends meet. So unfortunately, after our lockdown, I was made redundant during that period. So this was as soon as we came out of lockdown, this was a new position for me. And I couldn't afford to go out like I used to, because I was earning less and the price of living has gone up twicefold. So I was like, what do I do for a bit of fun? And here I am, trying to bring people together, even though generally YouTube tries to divide them. So I'm going against the grain a little, Jason, to be fair. Yeah, yes.
So as far as topics are concerned, I'm curious about, like, I know you mentioned men's health more than once. Is that a really big issue these days? That because I'm kind of in an echo chamber of dealing with conspiratorial type topics, like things that are like a lot of the stuff we cover, we do cover some health stuff, but it's usually alternative health and things to help with certain very specific issues that mainstream health wouldn't deal with. We do a lot of law. But it's law that, again, the mainstream wouldn't be covering. So we don't cover things like that. What is it about men's health that's going on that makes it a repeated topic?
Well, these are my observations, okay? So none of this is facts or stats. These are my observations. So my observations of the sector that I'm from is that there's this ever-growing division between men and women, right? And I try and bridge it together to approach subjects like men's mental health. But I've had several of those panels, but they've always kind of gone the same way. They've kind of gone a little bit crazy because people are so opinionated about men's mental health. It's still a taboo subject. And so I try and ask the men to educate me so us women can understand more about what goes on, because a lot of the time in life, men are taught to not cry, shut up, keep your feelings bottled up. And yeah, I get people going against me saying I'm a liberal, bleep, 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 bleep. But it for me, it allows people to come together and for men to be able to find a space where it's safe to talk, because it's so taboo for a man to talk about his feelings, right? So I want to offer a space to say, you can talk here. and you won't be judged.
You know, that's an interesting thing, because decades ago, men were always pushed to be what people nowadays, some will call the patriarchy, but men are human beings too, with feelings, and they could be upset about things, and they could have things bothering them just like anyone else. Decades ago, the man was always pushed to the forefront, and the breadwinner always had to take care of everything. These days, obviously, things are more spread out, and could be both male and female could be provider in a home. But there's a lot of stuff to get into the crazy conspiracy side of it. There's a lot of stuff that's been going on, kind of starting in the 70s, but it really went into high gear in the 80s to start contributing to why men these days might not be quite the way they used to be. Women too. There's a lot of stuff that's put in the food supply. Like, this is all, there's something about me that anybody who's hearing me speak who doesn't know me, I'm very big. If I say something, it's because I found documented evidence of it. And that's the best I can do. If I find something where it's like, hey, I found this documented here, here, and here, I'm pretty sure this is accurate. Might not be, but I can only go with what I can find when I research a subject. And as a matter of fact, I just wrote a show that we'll be recording in the next couple of days on chemicals put in food, and the horrible things these things do mess with people like crazy. But one of the big things is the stuff that they're doing to males, like with a lot of estrogen mimickers and things like that. So I think men today are probably, again, I don't have statistics for this because they weren't taking stats on this 50 years ago, but just judging the way a lot of people are acting, there's a physical component to it. There's stuff that's been in the food, the water, the air, like medications. They medicate the hell out of everybody these days. That's one aspect of an attack on masculinity. Then you have a psychological aspect of masculinity if you're into mainstream media. Then there's echo chambers, people going into different, like the way, well, it's X now, but the way Twitter used to be. There could be groups of people where they're just bombarding you with, especially when you're young, just God only knows what they're hearing. And you that's why you see a rise in so many people having issues in a way that almost didn't exist years ago. Not that it didn't exist, but it seems, and again, I don't have statistics to back this up, I'm just theorizing, but it seems like today that those things are way out of control and have been for quite some time, and only getting worse, so that now you're seeing what you're describing. And more people are having issues because they're growing up with these issues, and now they're adults, and maybe they're having trouble dealing with concepts that maybe 50 years ago that wouldn't have been an issue.
No, absolutely. And this is why I sometimes get pushback, because I go up against, because a lot of the time, and I'm sure you've noticed on what used to be Twitter, there's a lot of division, isn't there? You know, the feminist group will go up and this group, and this, and like I said, it's the same with YouTube. In most platforms, there's division, and obviously mainstream media, that's their whole entire purpose, is to cause division and hate. So I'm a little platform right now, but my intention is to grow, to do the exact opposite, to break down some social structures or social things that have developed over the last sort of 5-10 years. Like, you know, I don't know if you've heard on the YouTube streets, there's red pill communities, there's blue pill communities, there's black, and I'm like, you know, and I don't want to I don't want to disrespect them. I'm just saying, look, we don't need to have all these separated divisions. Like, I belong to this group, we can just all come together and share ideas. So, like I said, I'm going up against the norm. We've just recently started doing a new concept. It's called Male versus Male. And the concept of that, and what we're doing is we're spreading out to all different types of communities that we normally wouldn't encounter. And what we're doing is I go against a male creator from a different sector, and it's basically battle of the brains, battle of intelligence, back and forth on any given topic that's chosen for us. And again, that's with the intention of uniting. So uniting different, not uniting, introducing each other to each other, whereas normally that may not happen because everyone's on different sectors.
Right. Now, I've noticed even just in the communities I'm in, I'm a musician, I'm a singer, guitarist, songwriter, I'm a studio engineer. I'm in an actual studio now, and I'm surrounded by thousands of dollars worth of gear because this is my thing. And I've noticed as I've gotten older that even dealing with other musicians, the attitudes have changed. They're not the same as they were when I was a kid in the 90s. They're just very, not all of them, but I mean, a lot of them are very different. And again, it's like the emotionality is different. I don't know. It's almost hard to put into words, but I don't want to be in a band with a bunch of people who have like, man, I don't want to be insulting, but it's like they're almost communists at this point. Some of the crap that they spew, and then they get all bent out of shape if you get in their face with these crazy little things called facts. So yeah, there's definitely something that's gone on in society overall. So I think that's probably spilling over into all different topics, and that's got to be what you're seeing.
Well, what I see is an agenda being put in place, and now we can go into the controversial. I know you're going to like this, but I see a big picture happening with our governments and with the assistance of.
That sounds like conspiracy talk.
Yeah. And everybody knows how I feel about it. But like I said, I'm very open to different people's perspectives. Even if I disagree, I always respectfully disagree. It's very rare that I'm not the kind of person to force my opinion on others. Like I said, this is a collection of people and ideas to come together. And call me liberal, but it's all about peace, not war.
Well, that's another thing that they've played on. If this was the 1960s, I'd be a quote unquote liberal. I don't want war. Like they were against the government. They were against all the things that were going on, the killing and all that kind of stuff. Somehow in the intervening 50 plus years, they've flipped that, where it's like the other side, the conservatives are the ones who are trying to keep peace and all that. It's really bizarre. But again, this is social engineering. They've managed to pull this off, so that the liberals are the ones like Rage Against the Machine is a great example. It's like, no, you're raging with the machine. You're the ones pushing all the crap that the governments are pushing. They're telling you to go and do. It's like, no, that's not what. Where are the musicians who spoke out about all the horrible things going on? Now they're sucking up to this politician and that politician. It's just a different world. I mean, maybe I sound like an old guy just bitching about the world and shouting.
No. And also I wanted to add that I am, supportive of the LGBTQ plus community, because it's inclusive. It's an inclusive channel for all, and I don't want to. And I want everybody from all walks of life to feel welcome. So,
why would anybody not be okay with that? I mean, I guess if you were like
not okay with that, Jason. Some people are not okay with the LGBTQ plus community.
I've just never cared. What I don't like is the small percentage where they want to push it on into society on other people. They want, you have to do what I say, and worse yet, push it on kids. That's where my line starts. And I can understand.
Those subjects have popped up on my panel and have been very, very heated. Yeah.
So as far as just like live and let live, that's the way I've always been. I don't care what anybody does. Don't, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. I have never cared what anybody says they are, what they do. I mean, maybe this is hopefully common sense to most people, but like what you do in your bedroom should really be your business and nobody else's.
Right.
That's all. And I've had plenty of gay friends. I used to work in restaurants growing up, and that's where a lot of them gravitated towards for whatever reason. So I used to be friends. I still talk to some of them, in fact. I just
think it's ridiculous that some people judge on either color, sexual orientation, on religion. That's something that I've grown up in my world. I've always judged the person, and I don't see color, I don't see religion, I don't see sexual orientation or gender identity. I'm all about if you're a good person or if you're a bad person.
That's the way it should be.
Right.
Now, maybe it could be just the way I grew up and where I live now, which is Southern Louisiana. I actually live in the New Orleans area. I don't see much racism. That seems to be a mainstream division talking point. That like growing up, I don't think anybody I knew gave a shit about that stuff. I mean, by the time you get into the 80s and 90s, just to use a very common example, like look at how many TV shows, it started in the 70s, in fact, now that I think about it, but like huge TV shows and huge movie stars that are black people. Nobody cared. I never heard anybody say anything against that. And I don't know. I just don't think it's as bad as, now you're always going to have a very small minority of people who are they're kind of assholes. They're racist for the point of being racist. It is what it is.
And I don't allow that in my channel. Absolutely not.
No, I don't.
I know
allow
there's
that in my
channels
life.
that do allow it, but that's their prerogative. But like I said, I am just a reflection of the way that I've grown up. Now, call it what you want, call it liberal, but if
I
this
don't
is
consider that liberal. That's just being a decent human being, I would think.
right.
See, these terms have changed over the years. If you really want to start pulling them apart, like what was a liberal in the 60s and 70s is not what's considered liberal today. A liberal starts getting some crazier shit where like you have to call me by these pronouns and there's 67,000 genders. Like it starts getting a little weird. It's just like, I don't care what you think, but like some of this starts getting very bizarre. Like you're playing pretend in a very serious way. It's almost like if William Shatner started demanding that you called him Captain Kirk. It's like, no, that's who you played on a TV show and in the movies. Like you're not Captain Kirk. You're William Shatner. Not that he ever would. He gets pissed off about that stuff. But just to use a very common example, do you feel that...
Sorry, I was just reading a comment. Sorry, Jason. Sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry.
Do you feel that that's a big deal? Like, do you see a large group of people who are demanding that they're going to say there's something that they clearly biologically are not? And again, I don't care what anybody wants to do. I personally have people in my life that do some of these things, and I respect whatever it is they want. But it's when they start trying to push that it's like, okay, you need to chill a little bit. Like we all have different outlooks on things.
I am not the judgmental type. I really don't tend to judge. What people do externally is beyond my capabilities. All I can control is how my channel, what direction my channel goes to. And I have all walks of life. I have transgender women, I have straight men, I have straight women, I have gay men. I have, white people, I have brown people, I have black people. It doesn't matter. And nothing is pushed on my platform. How everything else, whatever happens in the world in regards to that subject, I think it's something that the community is happening to, for them to tackle the subject. Because what influence would I have? And I wouldn't want to influence either one way or another. Right. Mine's about acceptance.
Well, and again, I think it's common sense that you just let everybody be themselves as long as it's not harming another person.
Right.
So yeah, and I'm totally cool with any of that. And again, I can tell that a lot of people get iffy about this stuff, so it's probably best just to leave it alone. It's just that it's another point to cause division, and that this is one of the things that I've learned. I always joke and call myself the least paranoid conspiracy theorist, but there are certain things that definitely are going on, and we're at a point now with this interconnectedness of like the digital age has really changed the connection with pretty much the entire world. I mean, I know there are parts of the world that aren't online per se, but there are so many things that people can be pushed to fight about. And I see that happening. And again, this goes back to the whole social engineering thing. I think that is what they do, because it's much easier to control people when they're off their kilter than if they're all united behind certain single-mindedness. So that's what they do, I think, no matter what it is. And I always say they'll find something to get you. If it's like music's a great example. If you don't like rock and roll, they'll throw country at you. You don't like country, we got rap. You don't like rap, we got op. Like they'll find something to get into your life and to manipulate. And that's just something I keep finding cropping up. And it's gotten so bad nowadays that you just can't get away from it unless you just want to tune everything out.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, I don't know if people realize, I don't know whether people realize what's going on worldwide and the divide and conquer aspect of it.
Right.
I don't know if people are aware. Some people may not be aware that there is a divide and conquer all over the world. And so I see that with my country and with some other countries. And like I said, my intention is to go against that and say, no, let's try and bring us back together. And obviously that comes with its, pushback.
Right. The divide and conquer thing, well, again, this goes back to many, many decades, and Americans especially used to be a lot more leaning towards not groupthink, but just more together. They were a lot more people were patriotic, and if you had a difference of opinions, it was usually easy to work out, that kind of thing. Nowadays, it's just little groups all split from each other, and if you don't think like I do, then sometimes you're the enemy, and that's a problem to me. That's why I always tell everybody, be open-minded, and again, don't be married to any concept, because you just might be wrong.
True. I mean, some concepts, people will be set in their ways, and they're not going to, whether they're right or wrong, they're not going to budge. And again, that's people's own prerogatives. But when you take a worldwide view of something, like we're doing these debates right now, this is a new concept, male versus male, and it's purposely trying to talk to each other about those very concepts to see if we can sway each other. And the key there is to listen and to respect, and then you can take away from it for what you want. But when you have people from across the globe, I believe that it just it's about growth, right? It's about growth.
I would think so, yeah. I think that we always have something to learn from someone else, because we're all unique individuals. So obviously, if you can be open-minded and hear another person's point of view, you just might benefit from that. So I do try to be that way, especially if someone's not being hideously aggressive over what their stances are on any particular subject. It's a lot easier to get along and feel good about hearing someone else's point of view.
Right. And like I said, it's not all serious on my channel. I do equally, something serious and then something goofy, playful, fun. So we get a nice balance, because sometimes even me as a creator, I get, depending on the subject, I get super drained. I might leave my live and I feel like I've been out in a field for the last 12 hours plowing, I just feel drained. So it's really important to offer a 50-50 where we can talk about something serious, but then we can let our hair down and goof around.
Right. Now, when you say you do debates, how does that work? What kind of things do you debate, and how do you moderate it and all that kind of thing?
Okay, so this is a new concept. I'm on my 4th debate now, which I'll be doing on Friday night. And like I said, we take people from different communities of YouTube. We have my manager, Resto. He will pick a subject which he thinks there's a difference of opinion on. So he studies the other creator, studies their values. He knows my values, and he purposely picks subjects. For example, last night we had subjects like, is technology ruining society? Is OnlyFans, is there any advantages to OnlyFans? And there was another one where, are men weakening now compared to before, of men weakened? And what he tends to do is he tends to pick these subjects along these kind of lines, because obviously there's other, it just depends on the creator, where there are two opposing views with the intention of coming together and seeing if we can understand each other's point of view, maybe sway somebody. It's a learning experience. It's to learn. So, for example, I want to make so if I am pro-choice, let's say in respect to termination abortion rights, right? And we have somebody who is against it. The purpose of the discussion is to try and come to a respected balance of, and sometimes you can't budge people's opinions, but you see what I mean? It's about taking people from different communities, of very opposing communities, ideas, ideals, and seeing if we can come to an understanding.
So as far as debates, can you give me some examples of what topics and what resolutions come at the end? Because I'm kind of curious, do people ever do like I suggest and just don't be married to topics and get open-minded and listen to the other side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I had a debate last week where people in the chat were messing around and were saying, "Is this a debate or is it a date?" But that's because me and that particular content creator really did agree on a lot of things that we were talking about. Um, Now I've forgotten the specific questions because, unfortunately, when as you get older, your memory goes. And but you know, it's all sorts of subjects. And nothing's off the table. Nothing's off the table. So, like I said, the questions are tailored to each individual creator. So, for example, I've got a debate on Friday. We're going to be talking about cultural appropriation.
Hmm.
We're going to be talking about whether content creators are responsible for what happens in their chat. And we're going to
Hmm.
be talking about one last thing, which I really don't remember because it was a new subject. So do you see what I mean? The questions are tailored per creator and depending on their views. So the other question is, do religious beliefs support or hinder the advancement of human rights, such as the LGBTQ plus rights and gender equality?
That could get into a very man, there's so many things you can get into with that. So yeah, I
Right,
guess it depends upon who it is you brought in,
right.
because just as you might have some, like, I forget the name of that church that they're literally just assholes. I forget, they're in a southern state where they're anti anything queer, is like, you are literally demon spawn walking the earth. But then there's the total other spectrums where you have gay ministers and lesbian ministers and all that. So yeah, it just kind of goes the whole spectrum. You have some other religions where that's just not allowed, and they literally throw gay people off roofs. I will leave it there. But, it really just depends upon who you're speaking about and who you're going to bring to the table. Some people take their religious viewpoints kind of literally, which I don't know. It's again,
Oh, Jason, I mean,
it's
I once did a panel and it wasn't even meant to be aimed at anything religious, but it kind of really went there and it got really heated. And the topic the topic of the night was, should drag queens be made, and should drag queens be made an over 18, or should it be family entertainment? Because in England it's family entertainment. So this was about drag queens, and it went down the religious route, and yeah, that was a very fiery live.
I bet.
It was.
So what is it you're trying to get to with it? Is it just a more of a universal understanding amongst people? Like, what are you trying to get out of it in the long run?
For me, it's exactly what you said, a universal accumulation of as many people that I can gather from all walks of life, and to come in and just have, a lot of us can't afford to go out anymore, so just kind of like have a night out, but I kind of think of it as a group of people sat in a pub having a drink and just conversing. So my intention, because I see so much division on YouTube, my intention is to unite, and see if we can all come together from all different walks in life and just say, you know what, let's have a drink, let's have, whatever, let's get a cup of tea, let's get a cup of coffee or something, whatever whatever tickles your fancy, and just come together and spend a few hours, 3 or 4 times a week, just enjoying each other's company.
Is panelverse, is that a universally used term now? Because Rose had to introduce me to the concept.
I
I'm
believe
coming from a content creator standpoint. So if I put a video out, it's because I'm trying to discuss a specific topic that I've researched, and then passing that information along. This is a very different concept, and I do like it. It's almost like the old school, everybody goes down the pub or the inn, if you talk about
right.
hundreds of years ago, and everybody's having a conversation about things. It's actually really good to see. I can definitely respect it because I don't know. I think so many people get wrapped up in themselves that they're not being open-minded to other things. So it's really good. It's just a good thing overall. That's why I wanted to do this on my channel in the first place, just to get out of the same thing that I always deal with, and just, I know I'm speaking, people have no idea who I am, so that's interesting, and they probably think I'm boring and stupid or something like that because I'm not you. But whatever, it's like it is what it is.
Oh, Jason, if you're going to start going into the panel verse, you're going to have all sorts of, not, because you don't just get the good, you will get people that intentionally are coming up to try and, walk along the TOS and try and cause problems, try and troll. We have porn, you have people that intentionally try and shut down your channel. We have porn bombers that will just come up, and so oh god, it comes with its challenges, Jason. But once you start putting certain measures in place, that happens less and less and less, and people tend to stop because you've put in certain measures it's called a porn blocker. So it's just a screen that you put so nobody can see who's on panel, and then if somebody new comes up, generally you keep that up for a bit, and it tends to, people tend to understand that, yeah, you've got precautions in place.
I have to say my only problem with it, and maybe this is my own ego speaking, I'm used to, if I'm doing something, that there's a measure of respect, because the people who are coming to my channel know that I've been doing what I've been doing and what I'm speaking about for many, many years, and researching it and studying things for even longer than that. And being somewhere where people are just treating you like you're a stupid moron, you have no idea what you're talking about, that's where I'm just like, I don't know if I just want to walk in there and just have someone treat me like that, when I worked very hard at giving the best I can. When we release our episodes, a lot of effort, a lot of reading, research, writing, production, like even production, like the shows that I put out sound like they come from like a major production studio, because I'm sitting in one, really. I don't know.
Look, I try and keep my panels and especially my chat as respectful as possible, but you do have to, whether you're in the right statistically or not, you do have to expect people to come up with opposing opinions, and it's all about respectful chat. It's all about respectful back and forth, but you have to have expectations that there will always be somebody that's going to have an opposing opinion to you, whether you're statistically right or wrong.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. Do you have a particular, well, maybe more than one, do you have areas of expertise where you are very confident in what it is that you discuss? And
Yes. When we have discussions about people on the spectrum with autism, I've worked with various organizations, charities, and I think I'm well educated. I've also been to university. Anything on a psychological point of view, I'm a BA honors. I have a BA honors degree in psychology. So, but I am very open minded, Jason. And like I said, for me, a lot of the time, my guests are the focus of my attention. It's not about me.
Gotcha. Okay, so again, this is a very different concept for me. And Rose kind of started looking for other things to pay attention to, other than like the same kind of circles that we run in. She I don't know. I actually don't know how she found this panelverse concept. I don't know what show she found. I never really asked her. She just started listening to these things, and she had asked me a few times to get in on stuff. Now, I think some of them were still leaning more towards my side of things. Like I remember there was a couple times, I remember one very specifically where we were talking about law stuff, and it was actually something I'd looked into directly myself and tried to interact with. And that was fine. And I went on there, but then you always get the people who are going, well, actually, and it's just like, okay, well,
you're always going to get that. You have to expect that.
If you,
and sorry, Jason, to interrupt you. And sometimes when they don't have an intellectual standpoint of view, they will attack your looks. That happens a lot.
Right. It's like if you have somebody come on because they have done the work, you could at least be respectful about it. And maybe most people are. That's all I was really getting at. Like when you go in certain places that I've just seen a level of unprofessional attitudes that has disturbed me at times, I guess you could say. And maybe that's why but hey, I got to get on my comfort zone if I want to reach more people, right? That's why we're doing this. This is actually benefit. You're on my channel, but I'm also speaking to your people because you're also duplicating it on your channel. So we're speaking to each other's people. which
Right.
is totally new, probably completely. I doubt very much that there's actually a universal person between those two channels. So,
Well, Jason, if you're going to open yourself up to the panelverse, I obviously I don't know you. I know Rose very well. You do have to have fixed. You have to grow rhino skin. You have to grow thick skin, and you have to because some of the, I call it the twilight zone. Some of the behaviors that I've seen in the last 2 years on YouTube have been beyond my cognitive apprehension. Like, people behave really badly on YouTube because there's no ramifications. So, they sit behind their keyboards, and where something in real life might get them either arrested or punched in the face, you don't get that on a panelverse, right? So you do have to grow really thick skin and learn to ignore it, because there is a lot of, and this is particular subject has come up on my panel as well. There are a lot of ill people or narcissists, or people just are not good people, that will come to you, will come for you if you're doing something good with the platform.
all right, I don't know if there's really any other questions I have about this. It's an interesting concept. I'm glad to see that people are finding new ways of interacting, because really, you don't need to go out and spend a ton of money. Like, it's just, things are too expensive now, and
Right.
I just don't think that's going to change. Hopefully things will get better. I am always hopeful for the future, but it's just not looking that way. So yeah, doing things like this where it costs you nothing or next to nothing, that's a good thing. And then you get to interact with other people, and
Right.
you're not getting totally sloshed down at the bar. So
Right. Well, I don't know. Some people get quite sloshed on my panel.
yeah, I guess you could do that, but still buying yourself a 6-pack,
Yeah.
you're paying the same for that as you would for one at the bar. So
Right. And like I said, this is kind of like after lockdown, because like what you said, people can't really afford to go out as much, and I include myself in that. This is kind of like a new form of entertainment for us all, right? And it's fun. Sometimes it can be. We have so many laughs on channel. So don't get me wrong. I know we focused on the bad, but there is a lot of good too.
all right. Well, I didn't want this to be a really long thing. I just kind of
Thank
wanted
you,
to chat
Jason.
about it. Is there anything else you want to go over before we say goodnight or good
No,
morning to you?
because I know Rose said to me that you wanted to kind of wrap it up at about an hour. So
Yeah, well, I just wanted to just do something a little different. Plus, I like challenging myself. This is something I've never touched on before, and I just wanted to have an open conversation. Not really an interview, but more just like a back and forth on things that I've never delved in before. So this was cool. And then if any further shows I do, I'll probably be more like what I'm used to. So this was cool, and it was a good way just to meet somebody else who I know that I know Rose really likes you a lot, and obviously
I really like Rose a lot.
so.
Rose is like a diamond. She really is. She really, really is. She is a source of like this amazing energy. And whenever I've had her on my panel, people have just like, it's almost like a bright light. And I always say that to Rose. I think she's an incredible human being.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you coming on here,
Thank you,
and
Jason.
it's great meeting you. And I'm sure I'll chit chat with you again, because I know
I
Rose
hope
isn't
so.
going anywhere. So hopefully she's paying attention. I'll let her do the controls on this while I learn how StreamYard works. I actually normally do OBS on the live streams I do, so I've got to learn StreamYard now, because it's
StreamYard is quite simplistic. I think I don't know. I don't use OBS, but it's quite a simple program to use. But thank you, Jason, for having me here for our little. You're welcome. Also, over if you want to get some practice in before you start opening up your own panels, you're more than welcome to come over to mine. They're generally very polite and courteous, but I warn you, sometimes it gets a little spicy.
well, you're definitely welcome to let Rose know if there's any particular topics that you think I could intelligently
No,
contribute
absolutely.
to.
When I do the controversial stuff, I would love to have you on to enlighten us with your knowledge.
Cool. Yeah, anything that I'm comfortable speaking about. I love just I've put in so much work to so many different topics that I enjoy when people who are legitimately interested to learn. I'm very happy to share that. I'm only going to be here on this earth for so long, so benefit from what I've done and take from it what you will. So thanks so much for your time. It's very appreciated. And I guess
no, thank you. And can I just say, because I think there's a bit of confusion of my chat, I am going back to my channel. It's not the end of. I'm on my way there now. So thank you, Jason, for having me here, and good luck if you're going to open up the Panelverse.
We'll see what happens.
Well, it's been lovely talking to you, and thank you, Rose. And I'm going back to my chat. So thank you, everybody, and have a lovely evening.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
For all to see.